Welcome to the Tough Talk Podcast, your weekly sports podcast rambling and debating all your favorite sports. Previews, recaps, predictions, and more. Only here at Tough Talk. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at Tough Talk Pod. Now, here are your hosts, Christian and Derrick.
Hey Christian, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing, Derrick? It has been a pretty long time since we did this, but we need to start off 2020 in the right way. Back here on Tough Talk Podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Unfortunately, we're not coming at the best time to restart our podcast. It is right before the Super Bowl, but it is with sombering news as Gigi and Kobe Bryant did pass away. Real quick, I just want to talk about like my favorite Kobe moments. I go back to seeing when he won the championships with Shaq, just the look on his face as a young kid winning those championships, and then becoming the grizzled vet who is pushing his elbow right into the back of LeBron James and letting the young kid know, hey, this is my time and this is still my time and I'm still going to be the MVP and I'm still the best out here. And he had that mentality through life, and it was the Mamba mentality. The other night, Victor Oladipo hit a shot from deep, and he just said it was the Mamba mentality. It's always going to be the Mamba mentality. The NBA is talking about possibly having a petition signed to change the logo from Jerry West to Kobe Bryant, and I couldn't agree anymore. Some people are saying they should be on the 2K21 the title as well. The thing I got to say about that is, can we please think about the remaining Kobe or the remaining Bryants when we go ahead and make that, because I'd really like to see something to them as well. I feel for the rest of his family, his wife, his other children. It's a really bad thing, and there was other people on board. Everybody keeps mentioning just Kobe and Gigi, but there were other people on board as well, and it really sucks for everybody and families involved.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. I've never felt so upset about someone I've never met in my entire life, a stranger. Felt like I've known him because I looked up to him my entire childhood. One of the first NBA Finals I remember is the 2002 NBA Finals against the Nets. That's honestly, that NBA Finals is what made me an NBA fan. And my brother was a big Lakers fan. I really wasn't as much. He was a big Shaq guy, big fire and ice dude. But I always loved Kobe Bryant. I always looked up to him in general. And I really hope that the Los Angeles Lakers win the NBA Finals this year for Kobe. I'm rooting for him now. I don't really have an NBA team, so this year, Lakers are my team.
At the beginning of the year, I would have said that the Lakers are one of the teams I didn't really want to see do well because I didn't really like the way that Anthony Davis got traded because he forced the trade. Mm-hmm. But right now, I will say, yeah, I'm hoping that the Lakers win the championship this year. The big thing that a lot of people are taking away from this, though, is how devastated everybody is for someone like you said that feels like everybody knew them. And I kind of think about it, and we've had Magic Johnson around, and Jordan, and even Bill Russell, and all these great Hall of Famers, and they're still all around, still able to. And then it seems like the youngest, the GOATs that we lose, is the one that we lose, and it's really unfortunate that it happened that way.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that I'm really hoping that when everything happens, I'm hoping that this All-Star weekend, I don't know if you've heard, the teams will be wearing 24 and 2. 2 is for Gigi. That's a big thing, but I'm really hoping the NBA does something over the All-Star weekend for the remaining Bryants. Like I said, I really feel for his wife right now. She's been through so much over just the past week, and it's kind of crazy to see how she's coming back from it.
I agree 100%. I do. And unfortunately, we lost a legend, and it's. I think the biggest thing that's going to suck for the fans is we're never going to hear his Hall of Fame speech. So I'm really upset for that one. And obviously, this is a heartbreaker for the league. But just like Mamba would want us to move on and love the game, so that's exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah, I'm really hoping this All-Star weekend this year is going to be Be a very memorable one, I'm hoping. Like I had shared a message with you. I said it's surreal to think just last week he was talking trash to Luka Doncic and smiling and laughing with him.
Yep.
And now we're never going to see that again. We're never going to see him and LeBron hug and embrace each other again. He, while out of the NBA and retired, was still so active with the NBA and talking to younger players and trying to be that guy for a lot of people. Trae Young was somebody who looked up to him a lot. The way he looked when he heard the news was just devastating. Amari Stoudemire, somebody who played against him for years and knew him very well. Again, somebody who was just devastated when he found out the news. Everybody was just devastated when they found out the news, except one person. The comedian Ari Shaffir had a very different take on what was said. He's already been dropped from his agency, is what I've heard, and he's already been missing. He's already got canceled from his place and told he'll never be there, be able to perform there again. Which is deservingly so for what he said. I don't want to repeat any of the things he said here on the podcast, but it was unnecessary for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not just him that did it. There were definitely a few that said those things on social media. But, at the end of the day, everybody has the right to say what they want to say. But as us sports fans, we know what Kobe did to the game, and not just the game, what, to the world, international player, what he did to the game in general, and not just NBA. You look at the Pro Bowl that happened at the same time that the news was coming out. People were talking about how unfortunate this is and how much Kobe helped Drew Brees and, everybody, you name it. So it's not just an NBA thing. It's a sport-wide thing, and it's not even just a United States thing. It's a worldwide thing. So definitely Kobe will be missed, and his name will not go down in vain for sure.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and try to get on to a lighter subject here. Let's go ahead and talk about the all-star selections, but I want to more talk about the snubs and the people who were missed out on this year. I'm going to go ahead and let you talk for a little bit first about who you think was the biggest snub of all.
I personally think the biggest snub, hands down, was Bradley Beal. I mean, come on. 28.6 points a game right now. I think he was in second place for the longest time. He just dropped to about sixth place. But because his team is not doing that well, doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve to be in that all-star game. That's absolutely disrespectful. He deserves to be at least a reserve. And to me, this is why I think the fan vote is something that needs to be questioned. I'm not a big fan for it because this is missing out players that deserve to be here, like Bradley Beal. That's the guy that I am 100% pissed off about. It's that one. The rest of them, you have a couple more on the list that you want to talk about, but that's the number one that really just gets me pissed off, and that's Bradley Beal.
So the biggest one from the West that I'll talk about real quick is Devin Booker. He's having a great year. Everybody knows it. Anybody who watches the league knows it. Like you said, fan vote may be the biggest issue here because if the fans could vote for open players, we'd have Kevin Hart in the All-Star game every year too, because they just don't know anything. But I'll go to another team that's not doing so great and has a really good star on it right now, an up and rising star, is Zach LaVine. I'm still mad the Timberwolves traded him off. I thought we didn't give him enough time, and I thought that, honestly, at the time we thought Jimmy Butler would stick around, but hey, things happen. Another one that I want to talk about, and he's on a better team, I just think he's getting overlooked because of how good his teammates are this year, is Jaylen Brown off the Boston Celtics. He's having a pretty good year. Quietly good year. And then two people that seem like they should be on the team, but they've been injured quite a bit this year, are Paul George and Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns is having a career best year from 3-point percentage, and he's hitting more threes this year than most years combined he's had. So it's going to be he's going to be a good one for the future too. Hopefully he can stay healthy. My thing is with the Timberwolves though, when he's not healthy, that team doesn't win. So that should show how much of an all-star he is to that team.
When I look at Karl Anthony Towns, to me, that was something that I think could have went either way, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It was the injuries. I am really excited for Brandon Ingram, though. I think that he, definitely deserved a spot, and I'm happy for that one. I hear a lot of controversy on social media, and honestly, it might be the fact that the Pelicans have got a lot of national televised games in the schedule because they thought they were going to be a lot better because Zion was going to be in that mix. But Ingram's really showed up, and he's really done pretty fantastic. So I'm pretty happy for him.
It's kind of funny to me that the two people I think are in contention for most improved player are on the same team battling each other this year. Lonzo Ball, who everybody was so ready to call a bust because they don't like his dad, is having a really great year. He's changed his 3-point shot. His 3-point shot looks much better. It's faster release, and he's very accurate with it right now too. That team's going to be a lot of fun to watch. They're still they're still like right there trying to get the bottom of the West and trying to be in the playoffs. And that could be a sleeper team if they get to the playoffs, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
All right, let's go ahead and get on to the award watch. And the first thing I want to talk about is the MVP chase. I want to hear who you got right now for your MVP.
I think right now it's a solid Giannis to me. I think Giannis has holds on to that one. To me, I don't even think it's close. I think that he's just been absolutely amazing this season. I think that, you see Harden still leading the way in points per game, but what Giannis has done with the Milwaukee Bucks has just been absolutely incredible. And I see it going back to back. I see Giannis just taking it once again.
The possibilities I have right now, and you mentioned James Harden with his 36 points per game. He seems to almost pad stats at this point to get a better point total. Giannis obviously is somebody I had. And then two other guys I'm going to talk about. It's kind of funny because they were traded for each other. Luka Doncic and Trae Young. They're both leading their teams. They're both doing very well for their teams. And Luka's averaging 29, 9, and 9. That's 9 rebounds with 9 assists and 29 points for all you guys out there. And then Trae Young's averaging 29 points and 9 assists for his team as well. He's leading that team, and he's won them a few games this year on his shoulders. He takes the game over, and I think he does really well doing so. I think that's a sleeper as long as he can keep up the performances. I think he's a sleeper.
I love Trae Young, and I love Luka Doncic. Luka has been so great for the game this season and last year, but especially I cannot wait to watch these two guys grow into be the next superstars of the game. They're already becoming that, but give it 5 more years from now, and it's going to remain that way. And probably, obviously, Zion Williamson, too, which I can't talk about him, as I know we will here shortly on the podcast, as long as his longevity stays around. But really excited for all these young players.
Well, since you're talking about Zion, I'll go ahead and say it. I think if he if he comes out of the All-Star break and averages, say, 32 points per game, okay, and some people may see that as unrealistic, but if you watch the kid play, and if he's healthy, I could see him averaging anywhere from 26 to 32 a game, easily. But say he averages 32 a game, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and a couple of blocks a game, okay? I think that's enough to put him in contention with Ja Morant, who is clear in a way the front runner for the Rookie of the Year right now. What do you think?
Oh, man, that's tough. Love Zion. I think he's been fantastic since he's been back, but it's just so hard for me to say he has an opportunity to be Rookie of the Year after missing about half the season, especially because how amazing Ja Morant has been. I'd like to say that, I think that if he continues to do as good as he's been since he's returned, that he might become a finalist or in the talks. But if Ja Morant continues to do what he does right now in his 30 minutes of time of his playing, he's averaging almost 18 points a game and 7 assists a game as a rookie, as a team that's really close to being in the playoffs. I think they're actually in the playoff race right now, and
they are
right now. They're going to probably going to stay there.
The quiet rookie on that team also is Brandon Clark's being overlooked by how good Ja Morant's being, but he's fitting right into the role like a seasoned vet. He's really helping that team out.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
It's a fun team to watch for sure. But yeah. I just think for some reason, like Zion also, because of the hype, let's just be honest here, because of all the hype around Zion Williamson, because of all those TV games that they have this year, if he shows out it's going to be more in the eye than John Morant is this year. John Morant could go on to have the 6th seed and still be slept on for the Rookie of the Year because of the publicity.
I'll throw this one out before we move on here, as I see we're out of time. The Pelicans are 5 games out of the playoff race right now, and it's to Memphis. If Zion and the Pelicans find a way to make it into that playoff race, which isn't too hard, isn't too far away, and Zion Williamson is that X factor, then yes, he has my vote for at least being in contention for that Rookie of the Year award.
Real quick, do you think we could see Drew Holiday moved before the All-Star break?
It'd be really interesting, and I think it all determines on their long-paced goal here. If they think that they can actually make a push and try and make that playoff race, and if they want to look long picture. If they look long picture, then I think they should make that move. But if they want to make the playoffs this season, which, New Orleans has been pretty good at making the playoffs.
And I'm kind of wondering, honestly, if JJ Redick will try to push his way out of New Orleans to make the playoffs this year.
Continue to streak, right?
Yes.
So it'd be interesting to see if that happens. I see JJ Redick moving easier than I see Drew Holiday going because he's just a simple shooter. It wouldn't take a lot. I think you could probably get a trade for a 2nd-round pick for JJ Redick to move him. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. But I would say no on Holiday if I had to pick, but I wouldn't be surprised if Redick was on the move.
All right. So let's go ahead and get on to our Super Bowl predictions.
All right.
I'm going to go ahead and let you talk about what you think will happen first, and then I want to go ahead and just tell you what I think after.
Sounds good. Well, this game is going to be absolutely amazing. There's no doubt about it. It's not going to be a snooze fest like last year against the Rams and the Patriots. I think this game's going to be an absolute shootout. It's really going to come down to turnovers at the end of the game, determining who wins this football game. We have 2 great offenses. We have 2 fantastic defenses. I think that we sleep on Kansas City's defense, and I think we sleep on San Francisco's offense when we're discussing these 2 teams. The run game is absolutely amazing on San Francisco's side, and now that Jones is back for as that defensive edge pressure for the Kansas City Chiefs, what he did in the AFC Championship game really, really helps that Kansas City Chiefs. I'm taking the Chiefs to win this football game, but it's not going to be by a lot. I'm taking them 42-38. The under is 54.5. I think they crush it. I think they're going to go completely over. So if you're paying attention to the bets, take the over, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a shootout, and it's going to come down right to turnovers. And I think that if I had to make a bold prediction, I made it earlier on another podcast that I'm on. And I'll tell you what, my bold prediction, Pat Mahomes doesn't get sacked once. Not even Nick Bosa, none of those guys. That's who I got. How about you?
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. I got the Niners winning the game. A lot of credit needs to be given to Kyle Shanahan and the entire organization. Richard Sherman coming in. Everybody said it was a mistake for him not to have an agent negotiate his contract. Everybody said he was over the hill. He was old. It was a bad signing for the Niners. Look at him now. He's in the Super Bowl yet again. He feeds off of the negativity, by the way. Like, it seems like he just wants to be better every time somebody doubts him. Mm-hmm. Nick Bosa, it needs to be discussed how he should be in the contention for not only Defensive Rookie of the Year, but Defensive Player of the Year for what he's done for this team. And you could be like, well, why does he deserve Defensive Player of the Year? The same reason that I said earlier today that I think Jimmy Garoppolo should be in MVP talks, but he's not. This team was the 2nd team in the draft last year, the second worst team in the league last year. They're in the Super Bowl now. That only happens in Madden. You don't see that in real life. That's a Madden rebuild challenge right there is what they just did. So all credit goes to Nick Bosa for what he's done this year. All credit goes to Jimmy Garoppolo for what he's done. Can we talk about the front office and how smart they are to trade for Emmanuel Sanders when they seen they needed a playmaker receiver out on the outside for Jimmy G? This team is nasty. It's going to be a battle of the tight ends too, which I'm going to be really interested to see because you got 2 nasty tight ends in there. I think it's going to be a fun game. And
absolutely.
I'm looking forward to not watching the halftime show. So,
hey, I'm going to watch it because I'm taking it all in. I'm watching the commercials, the halftime show, play-by-play, you name it. And I'm even hoping that Joe Buck brings his dad up. I hope the Gatorade's blue when it comes down. I don't know. Everything. all those bets, I'm in. Count me in. But
the halftime shows when I go grab the pizza real quick for the second half. That's what I do. The pizza and the 6-pack and come back.
Hey, speaking real quick though, before we move on, speaking of those tight end battles, I did take the Kansas City Chiefs, but I'm gonna say I think that San Francisco has the advantage in that tight end battle. George Kittle, what a fantastic tight end that guy is, and he's an amazing blocker, and obviously they're a run heavy team. And no discredit to Travis Kelce either. This guy is absolutely amazing. He has some of the most postseason reception yards as a tight end in the modern era, but San Francisco has allowed the least amount of yards to a tight end this season. And I think that's going to come into play this game. So I can see Kelce being shut down, but that doesn't change my my prediction. There's just too many threats for Kansas City.
The one person, if Kansas City is to break it wide open, will be Tyreek Hill. That'll be the one guy that is the X factor because of his speed and the way that Mahomes can deliver that ball to him. That's the one X factor in this game. If Kansas City wins, Tyreek Hill will have a huge game. That is something you can take to the bank right now. But the same thing can be said about if the Niners are to win, it's going to be because of their run game. Their run game and Jimmy G's management of the game, because he's so good at managing the game, getting the slot receivers open, getting the slants wide open. He doesn't have to throw it deep every time because he can hit them accurate 9 to 7 yard passes or 7 to 9 yard passes, and just he can really do what he needs to do.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think it really comes down to that. I think it's going to come down to the opportunities to whether if they can run the football, and if not, they're going to have to throw the ball if they can limit their turnovers, because whoever winds up, turnovers lose you games. So Kansas City hasn't committed a single turnover this postseason. San Francisco's committed one, and it was an interception that really didn't matter whatsoever in the championship game. So both these teams are very good at not committing turnovers. So if it happens in this game, the other team knows how to capitalize. So I think that's where it comes down to.
It's going to be a fun game for sure. I'm definitely excited to see it. I know I don't have any other plans on Sunday because that's the only thing I'm going to be doing. But all right, let's get into the NFL award talk. Real quick, Rookie of the Year, I believe offensively it should be Josh Jacobs, no doubt. Kyler Murray did have a decent year for a rookie quarterback. Josh Jacobs broke the records of the franchise he was in. He has the most rushing yards by a rookie for the franchise. So can we just end the discussion there, I think, honestly. Unfortunately, Nick Bosa has had such an incredible year. Players like Max Crosby aren't even in the top 3 talk for the average NFL fan because he had such a good year. So unfortunately, we won't see 2 Raiders getting Rookie of the Year, but we will see 2 of the Bay Boys getting Rookie of the Year, in my opinion, with Nick Bosa and Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, I think Josh Jacobs, I think both those guys are my picks too. I'm happy that Devin Singletary got in the mix for Rookie of the Year talks. He was in the top 4 finalists. And I'm happy. I don't think he deserves the actual top spot, but I'm really happy for the potential as a Bills fan. But yeah, Josh Jacobs deserves Offensive Rookie of the Year. I'm excited to see where Kyler Murray goes as well, like his potential, but Jacobs for me. And yeah, Nick Bosa, what a season he had. No one else comes close. I mean, Crosby had some great weeks, but nothing comes close to Bosa this year.
I was about to say, there's other people like Crosby, Josh Allen, all these guys that had good years, but when it comes down to it, Nick Bosa took over. And like I said, he was a second overall pick, and now his team's in the Super Bowl. That has to be considered somewhere in there. And that's the same reason that I'll say it again. I think that Garoppolo should be in MVP discussions, even though I know it won't be. Because if you look at what the team did, I believe that's what the MVP. He was the most valuable player to that team. If you took him away, they're not going to be in the Super Bowl this year. However, I do think it's going to be coming down to, honestly, Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson for the finals. And I think Lamar Jackson takes it. Patrick Mahomes had an underrated year too, but I don't even think he's in the MVP talks now.
I think the fact that he got hurt in the middle of the season, although it didn't even look like it affected him after he came back. Like, we're talking about a quarterback right now in the Super Bowl who had a dislocated kneecap a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, I should say. Obviously, it doesn't even look like it affected him. But Lamar Jackson had an absolute incredible season. You can't look at his playoff performance in this aspect, because what a great year he had for a team that just obviously just did his thing. And Baltimore wasn't that great last year either, and they just completely changed the way. First year starter going MVP. I mean, that's what happened with Mahomes last year. So it's really incredible to see. And if I had to just throw a little spot at it, I'm going to call Defensive Player of the Year. I'm calling TJ Watt. I think he gets it.
TJ Watt is an underrated performer this year. He was on a really the defense that changed as soon as they got Minkah Fitzpatrick in there. I say, honestly, that Nick Bosa could be Defensive Player of the Year, but it would have to be under serious consideration for all that he's done for the team. Serious consideration. And they can't just put... I'm tired of just the stats mattering anymore, because it was like, who's the best player all around, like MVP? Who's the player that mattered the most to the team? And like I said, it could be argued Jimmy Garoppolo is the player that mattered the most to his team. And that's where I've always felt that way. I feel like the stats are sometimes overvalued for MVP discussions. But,
and it shouldn't be called MVP anymore. It should be called the MVQB as well, because this is a quarterback award.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think we're ever going to have a non-quarterback MVP, at least for a very long time, because it's just how it is these days. It's the same with the Heisman in college football, same aspect. So usually
the last running back we seen was Adrian Peterson. And it was on literally one of the best years a running back could have. And they're like, yep, nope, sorry, not good enough.
No, I agree.
All right, so let's go ahead and get on to the MLB free agency. All I really want to talk about is the Reds. The Reds just seem like they're trying to sign everybody up and make a big move. They signed Nick Castellanos, which he's a good bat, but he's a bad defender. Mike Moustakas, he's also on the team now. I personally think he's a little bit over the hill. We'll see. But I think that team is trying to pay their way to the playoffs, and I don't think it's going to work for them.
What scares me is the fact that the Cincinnati Reds kind of look like the Padres about, I guess you could say, 8 years ago. And that's when they signed Hayward and they signed Upton, and it didn't work for them. So to me, that's where they're at right now. They were kind of sitting there last year. The Matt Kemp experiment didn't work, and this year they're trying more veterans and trying to add them in. So be interesting to see what happens with this aspect. But if it doesn't work for them, I think they're going to sell really fast, and we might see a big trade deadline coming out of Cincinnati.
I think, honestly, we're going to see another year that they don't get to the playoffs. Speaking of another player, I think, that has subpar defense, to say the least, Marcell Ozuna signed with the Atlanta Braves, 1 year, $18 million. It's a good signing for the Braves because it's not a high-risk contract, because you're not sticking around for multiple years. But his defense is horrid. He's lackadaisical on simple balls that should be a single. He lets players get doubles off of all the time, and I'm wondering if that's going to be an issue for the Atlanta this year.
I don't know. I think it's a good pickup. I think it's a good rental. I think it's funny that he's wearing number 20, just like Josh Donaldson in. So Atlanta's number 20 is now the new 1 year rental jersey. But yeah, I like it. And when you look at him in the outfield, I think it's going to be an improvement from where they had Austin Riley last year. And, as well as his defense isn't as good, Acuna's still there. Ender Inciarte is still in the outfield. Nick Markakis is still there. So they have options. And if they need to make a defensive substitution towards the end of the game, we'll probably never see Marcell Ozuna play 9 innings unless he's up the bat late in the game. If his bats are up, he'll come out. It's just how it works in the NL. So until we have an NLDH, unfortunately, in the next couple of years, that seems to be coming out. But yeah, I think it's not a bad pickup. Now that Donaldson's over on the Twins and Marcell Ozuna now Atlanta Brave.
Like I said, I think it's a low risk contract, so Atlanta looks good either way. But like you said, he's not going to be playing the full 9 innings unless it's playoff time, and even then, you gotta watch for his defense, because his defense will lose you games. We saw it last year in the playoff race. He was losing us games by not rushing to the ball. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got to discuss right now. I mean, the Cardinals, we got Ryu, but a lot of people are disappointed. We only had $18 million to spend, and we spend $8 million on a pitcher, $2 million on Matt Wieters, and $5 million on Adam Wainwright. And everybody's like, "Oh man, that was a horrible offseason. How could you have such a bad offseason?" We got a high prospect from Korea for 2 years for $8 million. I think we did pretty good.
When you look at the Cardinals, it's one of those things where if you're not looking like New York Yankees and you're not, signing the top prospects or signing the top guys, then your fans aren't ever going to be happy. At least that's what I see when I see on social media. You know the fans more. You're obviously one of them, and you pay attention to the groups as well. But I mean, the way I see it from the outside looking in, that's always the aspect that if they're not in the winning ways, if they're not in the World Series that year, it's a failure. I mean, they had a great year last year, especially the way they started the season. They made it all the way to the NLCS. So to me, as a fan, I think that's a great year, and I think that they can only improve. And the fact that they didn't spend a lot of money, the fact that they kept their young core and they can continue, they have one of the greatest young pitcher in the league in Jack Flaherty. Yeah. To me, I think he's one of the best youngest pitchers. Some of the guys in the Padres might, give you some competition, and maybe some guys in Atlanta, but man, absolutely.
Somebody nobody's discussing is Miles Michaelis had a great year last year.
He did. And that was
nobody's really discussing that. But the funny thing you said about people not signing the big free agents, if you look right here behind me, Yachty, Waino, Paul DeJong, Colton Wong, these weren't players that were well-known, big names coming to the league, to the team, were they? We traded for Waino, and everybody lost their mind. How could we trade for this rookie pitcher? We bring Yachty in. You need to get that young kid out of there and get Matheny back into the lineup. Trust the process, because we get the players. Yep. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, agree.
All right.
We'll definitely talk more bassoll soon, because we're getting closer and closer. Oh man, me too.
Oh, I'm so ready for it. I just want to go to winter warm-ups and spend my whole winter there. Man. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and let you get on the ice, where you get to discuss all things hockey.
All right. And, I love this segment.
There you go.
Let's do it up. Hey, so welcome. It's On the Ice with Christian, back on Tough Talk Podcast. And we're going to discuss, we had just the All-Star weekend, and it was a fantastic weekend with the new 3-on-3 segments, the Pacific Division 1 in the new setup for the All-Star game. And to me, the most exciting part was the women's section of the All-Star game. Yes, right. They are bringing the women into it, and hopefully that continues. Hopefully we get a WNHL out of it. It needs to happen. Okay, so if you're and you have a way to say it on social media or whatever, put it out there, put it in the world that we need a WNHL, because it'd be fantastic for the game. But in other news in the NHL, big time upsetting news in San Jose. Tomas Hertl will miss the remainder of the season for the San Jose Sharks because of a knee injury. He has torn his ACL and MCL. It's a big hit for San Jose after them signing Erik Karlsson this year, losing out on their first-round pick. So if they keep slipping, and the Ottawa Senators, who have their first-round pick, are in for a pretty successful NHL draft next year. It'll be interesting to see if they trade away at the trade deadline this year some of their big-time veterans like Joe Thornton or Patrick Marleau. It'll be very interesting to see what that happens. At the standings, nothing has really changed too much at the top. As we've been talking in the last few weeks, it is still the Washington Capitals at 73 points in the Eastern Conference, and it's still the St. Louis Blues at the top of the Western Conference with 70 points. It's not much has changed. Boston Bruins have looked really well. They're leading their division, and David Pastrnak has 37 goals. He is killing it for Boston. He leads the entire NHL. And obviously the great Connor McDavid, we've talked about him multiple times on the podcast. He leads the entire NHL with 77 points already this season. 77! That's absolutely incredible. And I'll tell you what, when you look at the awards, what's going to happen so far this season, I really like what's going on with Connor McDavid, and I think that's going to continue, and like it. But hey, we talked about it at the beginning of our podcast a few weeks back when we brought On the Ice on, how excited we would be if the St. Louis Blues were against the Washington Capitals, two defending Stanley Cup champions of the past, going at it, and we're hoping that's the case. You and I are hoping for it. And I think that's going to be the case. I think that's going to happen. If obviously there's no upsets in the playoffs, but I think each of them are going to hold on to the number one seed in the East and the West. So that's it for your On the Ice with Christian. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll bring more back to you next week as we return back to our regular scheduled Tough Talk podcast, as we are every Friday here at Tough Talk.
Thanks for listening to the Tough Talk podcast. Be sure to tune in every Friday as we break down all the major sports topics for the week. Don't forget to subscribe and follow on Twitter at Tough Talk Pod.